Okay, so this is going to be a video tutorial to complete CSWA practice problem number 8. Of course, we're going to start off in our home page. This is for period 2B today. So in that 2B, you're going to see at the very bottom down here a CSWA practice 8 cover sheet. Now, the reason I call it a cover sheet, there is no drawing with this one. All we're going to turn in is the mass properties. But there's kind of something important when you click on this one. When it opens up, it's going to look like this. And what it's saying here is we're going to create the following part, okay, and we're going to walk through the steps of the part. And we're going to create the mass properties for each set of these variables. Now, what's important here is what we've been working on in the past is designing this and then automatically going back in and adjusting our sketches, changing the numbers as we need to. What I want to introduce today to you is how to introduce or use equations. Because once you have your equations set up, you can simply change those numbers, hit rebuild, and we'll automatically rebuild the part for you in a split second. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by looking at this part. Okay, and basically we're going to continue with our midplane. So looking at this in a brief summary, looking at it, again, I'll go back through this step by step, but just kind of getting a feel for what we're doing here. Okay, adding on some kind of a rounded piece, doing some kind of a cut a little off center it looks like, adding a hole, a slot, and another hole, and adding our chamfers on the outside edges. It looks like we're going to add a slight half circle cut to the back side, and then finally finish off with some fillets. Now again, if we read the direction, the fillets have been identified in the very beginning. Okay, so right now it says right here, all fillets and rounds are R2 unless otherwise stated. So those fillets will be radius of 2. Now I'm going to take this information, push this over to or minimize this for a second, okay, and get into my SOLIDWORKS. So here's my SOLIDWORKS. Okay, now again, looking at the part, you should see that it's automatically its metric. So we're going to start with a file new. I'm going to go to a metric part and say OK. Now from here, what we're going to do is we're going to start on the front plane. This is one where we can simply start on the front. Start a new sketch. So I'm going to left click the front plane again and click on the first icon. Now it does not matter. This is not asking for center or mass. This is simply asking for mass. So I'm going to take my line tool and again, making sure I attach to the origin, I'm going to pull to my right, pull up. Again, I'm referencing the piece of paper that you would have opened up. I'm going to pull up here. Okay, in this case, I'm going to actually go ahead and hit escape for a second here. I'm going to use my tangent curve here, or 3-point curve, to create a really shallow curve. This is kind of important because if you try to do the trick with the line tool, a lot of times it creates too deep of a curve and then you get locked because the center is locked on the corners and then suddenly you can't dimension anything. So let's just make this real simple with a 3-point curve. Turn my line tool back on, work my way up, back, down to the diagonal, and let's close this. Okay, so there's my rough shape of the initial part. So now what I want to do is actually at this point, before I even start working on any of these parts here or any of the dimensions, I need to set up my equations, okay, before I even put on dimensions. So if you look to your design tree to the left, you should see an equation folder. Now, if you don't see an equation folder, you can activate the folder by right-clicking and looking for hidden tree items, okay, hide show tree items, and you can make sure where it says equations, if it's not showing or it's on automatic, to say show. And that folder over here will automatically pop up. This is really important. You have your equations folder available to you in your design tree. I'm going to say OK. Now what I'm going to do to get my equations activated, I am going to go to the folder right here where it says equations, right-click my mouse, and say manage equations. Now in order to make this work, it's very critical you do a couple steps here. Okay, the first and foremost is we're working under what's called global variables. Okay, and the global variable basically allows us then to put a value in here and we can change it at any time and it will automatically update our part as we go along. Now I'm going to start off by simply typing in the letters I need. Okay, I'm going to use my caps lock a lot, but to make this work you have to use your quotation mark. Okay, that is right to the left of your enter key. Okay, and it's a shift quotation mark, the letter A, and shift again. Then I'm going to do tab. So it's going to say, okay, letter A is equal. Now, if you do not use your quotations, this will not work. The quotation marks are critical to make your variables active in your equation list. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to put in 80 millimeters. 80, enter. I'm going to go to the next line. I want letter B. In this case, I'm going to do quotation mark, okay, shift, quotation, the letter B, shift, quotation, tab. This is going to be 36.5. Okay, I'm going to hit enter. Whoop, go back, I kicked out of that, my fault. And one enter too many. Go back to the third line, shift, C, parentheses, tab. And the last number I'm going to enter is 55. Enter. Now I got my three numbers in there. A is equal to 80, B is equal to 36.5, and C is equal to 55. Now hit OK. Now I'm going to have to go back and reactivate this sketch. So I'm going to go ahead, and I should have done all the numbers first. I actually should have done my equation setup before starting the sketch. But now I'm just going to come back in here, left click to turn the sketch back on. Now I'm going to use my Smart Dimension tool just like we have in the past. I'm going to start with the bottom. So I want you to understand how the letter A is going to be put into here. You'll notice in the paper, as you're looking at it, there's a sigma sign with the letter A. That sigma sign stands for equation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this line right here and left click. Now when it comes up on the modify box, instead of typing in the number A, 80, we are going to hit the equals button, equals, and what you'll see is a drop down automatically comes up called global variables, functions, and file properties. If you drop your cursor to global variables, if you look to your right, you're going to see an A, 80, B, 36.5, and C will be 55. If I come over here and left click on A and hit my check mark, this now is that letter A. And that's what the sigma means, is that this is an equation. Okay, continuing working around, I'm going to go to 10. Oh, sorry, type it. 10. This distance right here will be 15. These numbers are just standard because they're just black and white. 15. This number here, I'll pull out to here, will be 15. What the hell is going on? Okay, 15. The height of this from here to here will be 20. And you can see I got a little bit of shift there, no big deal. I'm just going to pull this down a little bit. Pull this down, that's not a big deal. I have to fix that just by moving my corners here. Okay, I'm going to go from here. The center of this arc right here will be 10. This radius will be 6. This distance from that point here to this front edge will be 5. This top line, oops. Okay, 5. This top line right here will be 30. This height from here to here will be 20. And then this angle from here to here, if I pull up, is going to be the letter B. So again, to turn on my global variables, I hit my equals key, global variables, B, check mark. Okay, now, I'm still showing blue here because these are not lined up correctly. Okay, this point here needs to be vertical to this point here. And by doing that, I should now have a fully defined figure. Okay, again, notice I have 2 of these sigmas. These are from the equations. We will change these here in a little bit, okay? Now from here, I've got a fully defined model. So what we're going to do is we are doing a mid-plane extrusion of 100 millimeters. So I'm going to go to Features, Extrude Boss Base, Mid-plane, 100 millimeters, and enter. Check mark. Okay, now the material for this, you got to look at that front page. The material for this is going to be a 6061 aluminum alloy. So I'm going to go to my my materials and right click, edit materials, minimize my steel, open up my aluminum alloys and go to a 6061 alloy. Apply and close. Now from here, what we're going to do is, again, I'm going to go to my front plane. I'm going to start a new sketch. Spacebar, normal to. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw a circle that's attached to this middle and locked basically to that point right there. Okay. That diameter, just a check, should be 12, and it does show as 12, so that is good. So I'll get rid of that so you know that is 12. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do an extrusion of 110. Now what the picture's showing you is that it's extruded 5 to each side, outside edge. Well, if you recall here, if I go back to isometric, if this is 100 from here to here, 5 more this way plus 5 more that way is 110. So I'm going to go to Features, Extruded Boss Base, Midplane, 110, and hit my check mark. Okay, so now in that case, I've got that piece in there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this top surface, start a new sketch, and do a space bar, normal to. I'm going to turn on my rectangle tool, corner rectangle tool. I'm going to connect that corner rectangle somewhere to this front edge, orange edge right here. I'm going to pull it up or down, excuse me, and to my left. Escape to deactivate the tool. Turn your smart dimension, and what I'm going to do is from this back line to this line will be 10 millimeters. From this side line to this edge here will also be 10 millimeters. This line right here, though, is letter C. So again, to activate the global variable C, I hit my equals key, equals, global variable C. Hit my check mark, and now it's linked at 55. Now in this case, I'm only cutting this box down to this surface, so I cannot do a through all. And I don't want to think about the math here of how far do I have to cut down. So what I'm going to do is do an up to next, or in this case, up to surface. So I'm going to do a Features, Extruded Cut. Now I can do an up to next, but what's probably going to do, it's going to stop, to the bottom because it doesn't see it. So I'm going to do an up to surface. It wants to know what surface I want to stop at. I'm going to click right here to take that out. I'll hit my check mark, and now I'm sitting with that block of material gone. Okay, now if you're following along, that puts us on the 4th page of the PDF file. So now what I need to do is add some slots and holes here. So I'm going to highlight this top face right here and start a new sketch. Spacebar, normal to. I'm going to turn on my circle tool, and somewhere in this direction here, I'm going to draw a circle right here, another circle somewhere over here, and then I'm going to turn my slot tool, and in between these, draw a slot. Okay, so this is what I'm looking at right now. Okay, so let's put this into dimensions. So looking at the drawing, I see from this center mark to here will be a distance of 30 millimeters. For some reason, it's changing numbers here for me. 30. Okay, so that's 30. The size of this circle will be 15. This circle here and this circle here are the same size. They're also vertical to each other. Smart dimension on again. This circle from here to this edge will be 15. Now that's fully defined. That's a good sign. This right here is going to be from this center to this center is going to be 20 millimeters. The length of this will be 30 millimeters. The width of this will be 15 millimeters. The distance from this center to this center of the circle will be 20 millimeters. And that should take care of a fully defined figure. So there are all my numbers. I'll pull them out so you can see them a little bit better. Okay, now at this point with them fully defined, all we're going to do is do an extruded cut through all. So features, extruded cut through all, and check. So now we're really close to being done. Next thing I have to do is I need to cut off this corner right here. So I'm just going to use a feature chamfer tool. It's only one corner, which makes it really easy. So I'm going to turn on my feature toolbar, drop from fillet to chamfer. The chamfer will be a 10 by 45, so that's actually what the defaults are. And I'm going to click on this corner, hit my check mark. Going to the next page, I'm actually now at this point going to rotate this around, and we are going to draw on this back face. We're going to cut a half circle down at an angle. So I'm going to start a new sketch on that angled face, spacebar normal 2. I'm simply just going to draw a circle that is on the big side. Now this is important to understand. Okay, this is on that big side. It's going to be connected right here at the midpoint. I'm just going to draw a circle. I don't care. I'm not going to trim it off. I don't need to. I'm just going to cut a circle down. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this and make a diameter of 15 millimeters. Go to my isometric view so you can kind of see what this looks like. Now this tells me that this pocket cut is 20 millimeters deep. So I'm going to go to Features, Extruded Cut, Blind, 20 millimeters. Hit my check mark. So now I have that little cavity on the side. The last thing I need to add on here are my fillets in these holes and slots. So Features, Fillet, 2 millimeters. Remember, because that note in the beginning said R2. I'm going to hit this edge right here. Oh, nope, take that back. Don't want that. Get rid of that face. Sorry, that edge there, because this is only on the bottom. Actually, I fib. It's on the bottom. It's on both sides. I apologize. It's actually on top and bottom. So I guess I could do it this way. Hit the inside there. You're good. Okay, hit my check mark. I'm going to go ahead and add color to that fillet so you can see it better. Now, at this point, this part is done. So I'm going to do a quick control save. Make sure I save it to my H drive. I'm just going to call this caps lock CSWA practice problem 8. Or you just call it practice problem 8 if you want, or problem 8, don't care. But you need to make sure that you put your name on this. Last name. Okay, this is extremely important. If you don't put your name on this when you print your mass properties, so again, if you don't put your last name on there for your mass property sheet will not have your name on there when you turn it in. I don't know who to give the grade to. So you must put underscore your last name to make this work. Okay, I'm going to hit save. At this point, I'm going to go to evaluate and mass properties. So I'm seeing on this first one a 451.03 grams. I'm going to go ahead and print this. Now this is important because you can see my name is showing up here in the title block. Very, very important. If it's not there, I cannot give you credit. So I'm going to go to print. Okay. Close this out. Now, you'll see in the second part, so let me pull this back up. So that was this part right here. So the mass, that's what I just printed right there. Okay. Now I need to change my A to 92, my B to 33, and my C to 60. Now this is the great part with using equations, why this becomes so powerful so fast. If I go back to my SOLIDWORKS and I come back over here to equations and right click and do a manage equations, now what I'm going to do is change my A from 80 to 92, enter. Notice SOLIDWORKS is starting to update as soon as I type these in, 36.5 to 33, enter. And actually I'll move this up so you can see a little bit better. Okay, so let me go back and just show you that one more time. So this was back at 80, this was at 36.5. Okay, so you see everything moves. Now watch, it's dynamic. As soon as I start changing these, 92, SOLIDWORKS starts making the adjustments automatically. 33, and the last number is 60. Now what I like to do is when I say OK, just to make sure the numbers are good, I always hit my rebuild. So here is your new part right here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a file save as. I'm going to say CSWA practice problem 8 underscore 2, so I know it's the second one, and I'm going to say save. Okay, now I'm going to go to my mass properties. So now the mass properties are showing 463.33 grams. So I'm going to go ahead and print that one. Again, I see this. If you want, you can underscore say part 2 and then your last name. That would be fine also. I hit print. Okay. Close my mass properties. So going back to the drawing, I now have my mass for number 1. I have my mass for number 2. Now I need mass for number 3. So again, I'm going to change my equations to 73, 38, and 47. So what we're going to do here is go back to SOLIDWORKS, right-click on my equation folder, manage equations. I'm going to enter in, instead of 72 or 92, let me slide this up so you can see this happen. I'm going to enter 73. I'm going to enter in 38. I'm going to enter in, instead of 60, 47. And just like that, if I hit OK, and then just hit rebuild to make sure, I'm going to go ahead now and do a file save as. CSWA practice problem 8, I'm going to actually type it in this time, part 3, save, mass properties. Now I see it at 450.31, and I hit print. Say OK. Now at this point, you are done with this problem. What I want you to do is take your 3 mass property sheets in order, part 1 on top, part 2 next, part 3 at the bottom, staple them in the upper left corner, okay, whether it's in the horizontal or in portrait, I don't care, upper left corner, and place this in the collection box, okay. With that said, this is now done. First introduction into equations. You'll see some more of this. We'll do several more practice problems with equations so you can see how fast you can change problems by setting up your equations first. Remember, use this this video to your advantage. Pause it, rewind it, talk to your friends around you if you need additional help. I will see you next class. Good luck.